This rock was formed less than 10 years ago. Here, at times, the ground beneath my feet is younger than my little sister. That's the kind of thought you have while sitting on the slopes of Piton de la Fournaise, the world's most active volcano on Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean. Here, you can witness the spectacle of an eruption on average every 9 months. Since 1650, when the first observations were made, nearly 300 eruptions have been recorded. An episode in the realm of extremes that promises to be volcanic, where we'll walk on new ground, set foot on dried lava, and take a journey into the bowels of the earth to encounter magma and the unique landscapes shaped by lava flows. On Réunion Island, standing in the Plaine des Sables, you find yourself in a lunar landscape with red patches. Lost in the rainforests of Takamaka, surrounded by lush vegetation, or facing the sea on the sharp black cliffs of the Côte Sauvage, you can set foot just about anywhere on this island. Lava has flowed, more or less where you are standing, because the whole of Réunion is a volcano, an immense volcano, of which you can only see the tip of its nose poking just above the water on maps. And if you add to the island's summit, which already reaches 3,000 meters, the 4,000 meters that separate the ocean's surface from the seafloor, then the island rises to nearly 7,000 meters. From above, the island is just 70 kilometers long and 50 wide, but underwater its base measures 200 by 240. To build a volcano of this size, 8 million years of volcanic activity were necessary. For 5 million years, the spectacle took place underwater, with the volcano building up a huge pile of lava. Then, once the surface of the ocean was breached, it took 3 million more years of activity to reach the island as we know it today. The summit of the island, Piton des Neiges, is not strictly speaking extinct. It would be more accurate to say that it is only half asleep. Because beneath the earth, deep below, the fire still smolders. It's possible that in the future, the weary titan will roar a few more times before resting again. In reality, the island is more like a two-headed volcano, a two-headed dragon. One head, Piton des Neiges, has been dormant for about 12,000 years. The other, Piton de la Fournaise, only takes short naps of a few months before erupting again. In the past, Piton des Neiges also had some rather intense fits of anger. Usually hotspot volcanoes emit what's called effusive lava, which is very fluid. Between 350,000 and 200,000 years ago, this volcano had highly explosive eruptions with burning ash and pyroclastic flows. In fact, if you're lucky, you can even find pumice stones like this one around here. Very light rocks that float on water and are evidence of a time when it was better not to be in the area. When you look at this volcanic island from space, you might think that it's just a small, lost, and isolated dot in the middle of the vast Indian Ocean, just one volcano among many others around the globe. Except that the island has a unique feature that makes it exceptional. It stands proudly on a hotspot, a thermal anomaly, where rocks hotter than normal rise from the depths of the Earth's mantle in the form of a burning plume, before turning into liquid about 100 kilometers deep as they approach the surface. There are volcanoes that are dying, and there are volcanoes that remain. And the hotspot that feeds Piton de la Fournaise is one of them, because it has existed more or less for 65 million years. Since that time, it has probably never moved. It has stayed there, in the same place. The lithospheric plates have moved above it, and this small, seemingly insignificant point on the globe has played a major role in world history. You have to imagine that here, about 65 million years ago, almost exactly where I'm standing today, one of the most gigantic volcanic eruptions the Earth has ever known took place. An eruption that created much of India and occurred during the Cretaceous-Tertiary crisis, which caused the dinosaurs' extinction. At that time, for tens of thousands of years, the hotspot now located under the island flooded a large part of the Indian subcontinent, which was then here with lava. To grasp the scale of it, you have to imagine that some eruptions could have gone on without interruption for decades, with volumes of lava nearly 1,000 times greater than those emitted by the Piton de la Fournaise today. The lava flows from these eruptions could have covered an area nearly 3 times the size of France. Today, these formations are found in India under the name Deccan Traps, with some places having stacks of lava flows over 2,000 meters thick. Researchers believe that the massive eruptions that occurred here could have permanently altered the global climate. And then, over time, India moved northward. The mantle plume, however, stayed in the same place, continuing to pierce the oceanic crust more or less where I am standing here today. It created a chain of islands, volcanic features, and underwater mountains. Among those that rise above the surface are the Lacadives, the Maldives, the Chagos, the Mascarene Plateau, Mauritius, and finally, Réunion, the youngest of them all. All these islands, all these underwater volcanoes, once passed through here before drifting away, carried by the movement of tectonic plates. A large family, like so many monuments rising in tribute to past eruptions. Here today, at the heart of the hotspot, volcanic activity continues. Beneath the crust of hardened lava and cooled rocks, the invisible forge brings up the molten lifeblood, which, as it makes its way to the surface and flows out, leaves behind petrified flows. It's hard to imagine lava's journey to the surface. We need to take a moment to stop and think about the fact that, beneath our feet, just a few kilometers deep, under the current volcano, there are what we call magma chambers, which fill and empty with the rhythm of eruptions and the rise of magma. Beneath this vast layer of dried lava lie massive reservoirs, where magma pauses as it rises from deep within the earth before erupting at the surface. The main reservoir, located about 100 kilometers deep, supplies lava to a shallow reservoir, which is only about 2 kilometers deep, just 2 kilometers beneath my shoes, a distance shorter than the one between me and where I parked my car. These magma chambers, which can span several cubic kilometers, are interconnected. Occasionally during eruptions, what are called volcanic vents form from these reservoirs, conduits or fissures just a few meters wide at most, which, for the duration of the eruption, serve as corridors for the lava that bursts out, propelled by bursts of pressure and infiltrations. The magma that rises along these arteries pierces the ground, leaving large gashes, scars, and channels through which the lava flows, making the earth tremble. Flow after flow, with each eruption, the volcano continues to build its island. It rumbles with its mouth open, and along the slopes, the lava flows like hair over the shoulders of a giant, sometimes reaching the sea, which then begins to boil. Against a volcano, there's no fire extinguisher. Here, between eruptions, the volcano catches its breath. The magma chambers deep below fill up again. And when the volcano is about to spew, the sides of the volcano, the skin on the giant's belly, can rise by several centimeters. If the island's first inhabitants called this region the burned land, it was for a reason. On the island, you sometimes come across folded ground, wrinkled surfaces. These strange structures are caused by lava on the surface that hardens slowly while it's still moving, creating small waves that look frozen in motion. If you look closely, in some places, between the folds and creases, you might find petrified drops of rock, rolled over each other like the indecipherable pages of a spellbook, buried in the thick ash of history. Once lava flow channels form on the volcano's steep slopes, lava can speed down at nearly 60 kilometers per hour. The molten rock's temperature typically stays near 1200 degrees. Sometimes, the flow is no longer visible on the surface. Then, the magma winds its way beneath the crust, leaving behind, after the eruption, lava tubes that can later be explored. It's unsettling that thousands of cubic meters of liquid rock flowed through these tunnels just a few years ago. At the top of the main cone of Piton de la Fournaise, at an altitude of 2,632 meters, we find the Olemio crater. The hole at its center is so deep that you could easily fit the Eiffel Tower inside it. It wouldn't even stick out. This gaping mouth, like an open door to hell, is fascinating. Here, below, deep down, it's the devil stirring his infernal cauldron. About 10 years ago, the Dolomio gave itself a facelift. It partially collapsed in on itself, eating away a large part of the crater that surrounded it. And then, being at the summit, you become aware of the immense basin in which the basalt giant seems to have settled, its enclosure. Because the Fournaise is surrounded by a regular continuous cliff, known as a rim wall, which towers over it at a height of 100 to 400 meters. It doesn't mark a gigantic hole where the volcano was born, but a huge collapse fault. This large-scale cataclysm, which no one witnessed, transformed the landscape, leaving behind a natural boundary in the shape of a horseshoe, forming its impressive cliffs. This belt that surrounds the volcano and forms what is called a caldera was formed 4,700 years ago, a mere trifle on the scale of geological time. At that time, while the Egyptian Empire was still standing, the magma chambers located a few kilometers deep emptied enough to partially collapse in on themselves. The volcano then settled and sank under its own weight, as if it were slightly tucking its head into its shoulders. One might imagine this natural boundary could confine the volcano's activity within its enclosure, but that's not the case. After the fire passes, life quickly takes over again. Water and sunlight return. Lichen, then ferns, and finally shrubs will come to recolonize the most recent lava flows. After 400 to 500 years, the cooled rock is nearly covered by nature, which always reclaims and prevails. On the side of the island where the volcano has fallen asleep, vegetation reigns supreme. Here too, the landscapes change faster than anywhere else. Because while the passage of lava can leave its mark on the landscape, water, over time, can also carve out unique holes. Across the entire island, rain and erosion have shaped the landscape, leaving behind amazing formations. While the volcanic mood swings build the island up by piling up lava, while downpours, collapses, and subsidence wear it back down. Most of the world's rainfall records are held by these landscapes. In this area, nearly 25 centimeters of rain can fall in just 1 hour. 1.8 meters in 24 hours. When it comes to rain, the game is to dig and erode faster than the volcano can build. Thanks to the rain, the island doesn't have the plain shape of a cone and instead looks more like an epileptic seismograph when seen from the side. Everywhere, the volcano fights against the sea, against the rain, the wind, and the elements. The slopes of the island are put to the test by the water, which finds its way along the fractures, hollows them out, and reshapes them. The torrents cut into the mountain slopes to depths of several hundred meters, carving out hollows blanketed in greenery, magical and volcanic. At the seashore, along the black cliffs, every square meter gained from the waves is hard-won. The pounding of the waves wears down the softest rocks, tirelessly licking the cliffs until they break them off piece by piece. And the pebble beaches, the black sand, the remnants of the battlefield are there to remind us that this is a fight lost from the start. Time is always on the ocean side. Living in La Réunion means residing on E of the world's largest pressure cookers, a mountain with a fiery heart dating back to the dinosaurs. Even today, slowly but surely, the tectonic plates keep moving. Fissures open here and there to remind us that slowly, over periods that far exceed a human lifetime, volcanic activity is moving toward the sea. In a few 100,000 years, a volcano will break through the waves somewhere in this direction. Today, lava often reaches the sea here, claiming a few hectares from its territory. Stunned by the forces of nature at work here, I fall silent for a moment. You sit down, and you contemplate. When the volcano opens its mouth, everyone else closes theirs. Hear the
When you make it out, the 3 years combined, the brown part,